My rabbi, I have a Jewish rabbi, Daniel Lappin's taught me a whole lot. As a Christian man, he's just revolutionized my thinking. He said, you know, in Hebrew, that's the language God spoke to his people, and that every word that's in Hebrew is a word that came out of the mouth of God, because that's his language. That's what he chose. He said there's a lot of things you cannot say in Hebrew. He said one thing, you cannot say the word coincidence in Hebrew. It does not exist, cannot be said, because it never crossed God's mind that something was a coincidence. He plans in order. I thought, that's good theology. I mean, think about that. We wouldn't be using words like lucky and, you know, fortunate. We would use words like God's providence. He said, and I said, so what else can't you say in Hebrew? He said, well, you can't say the word retirement. There never is a time when God doesn't want you to be productive. You can change your jobs, but if you stop being productive, we've got the parable that Jesus gave in Luke about the guy. He said, okay, if you're not going to do anything, let's get you out of there. And then you've also, he said, you also cannot say the word rights. Rights don't exist in Hebrew, only responsibilities. Wow. And so what happens in America is we talk about our right to vote as Christians. We don't have a right to vote. We have a responsibility to vote. And so what happens is because we see it as a right, we decide whether we're going to exercise it or not. And that's the wrong, you don't have the choice of whether to exercise it or not. In America, since 1980, in an off-year election like we're having right now, which is between presidential elections, yes, only 67.1% of American adults are registered to vote, but of those that vote, it averages 39% of registered voters. What that means is only 26% of adults will vote in this election. The winning candidate will be chosen by half of that, which is 13%. Since 1980, only 1 out of 8 Americans chooses our U.S. senators, chooses our representatives, our governors, 1 out of 8.
Oh,
so do you know?
These are shocking numbers, David.
They are.
Are you guys getting this? I mean, literally, at home, are you listening to this? Will you say that again?
Only 1 out of 8 Americans chooses the winning candidates in this election, and yet 72% of America self-professes to be Christian. If those people who sit at home and say, I have a right to vote and I don't like anybody, no, you have a responsibility to vote. You go find the best one, get the one that's going to do the least damage, get involved. We could turn this nation in a heartbeat. And the problem is that not only do we have elections that are, you know, like governors and U.S. senators, there's usually 20 to 30 people on the election ballot. And I want to give you 2 examples real quick. This is where Christians fall down. Unfortunately, it was out of Fort Worth, Texas, that our school board said, hey, let's not have separate locker rooms for our kids at school, men and women. Let's have boys and girls all together in one locker room. And let's not have separate bathrooms. Let's have one. It came out of Fort Worth, Texas. President Obama said, that's a great idea. And then he went to the Department of Education. Department of Education said, if you get federal funds as a school, you will have no genders on your bathrooms or locker rooms. You will have one. And so all across America, common sense people rose up and said, no, we're not doing that. So there was a lady in Northwest Arkansas who said, I'm running for school board. They're not doing this in my school. She's in a town of 40,000 people, Northwest Arkansas, a very conservative town. And she ran and won her election. Now, a town of 40,000 people, the entire election, school board, only 35 votes were cast in the entire election. So she wins the election having the majority of 35 votes out of a town of 40,000. There was a guy in Iowa, northern Iowa, who said, they're not doing that at my town. He ran for the school board. On election day, he got busy and did not vote for himself. Now, it's not that he lost by 1 vote. It's that in that election, not a single person voted in the entire election. If he had voted for himself, he would have been the entire school board by himself if he voted for himself. This is where America is. We look at what's going on, but when you look at the numbers, we are the most disengaged of any Western nation. Our voting number, and Christians are the most responsible for that. And that's part of why we say the church has got to be the church.